welcome and thanks for joining us here at the table. I'm Rachel, and joining me for a real conversation about all things family today, we've got Shona, Rach and Mary Ellen. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Looking really good, loving this. Loving this.
Oh, thanks.
Very cute. Well, today we're going to be looking at the big parenting challenges, from screen time with young kids to discipline and pocket money. Plus, we get to chat to Australian musician Belle Thompson about her journey into motherhood and through postnatal depression. But first, to the very fun topic of discipline. Would you believe that the discipline technique time out was first introduced by behavioural psychologist Arthur States in 1958? Well, he used it as a long-term behavioural analysis with his own daughter and son. Now, today it is still recommended by many paediatricians and developmental psychologists as a form of effective discipline. Not only that, Shona advocates it as well. Shona, you're a big advocate of time out, aren't you? Yeah.
Yep.
Why?
Look, it didn't work well for Joshua because he couldn't sit still on the seat or the stairs where I put him. But for Aaron, it was like, he had to watch Joshua be dragged back to the chair and sat on it again. But it actually gave Joshua time to sort of get himself back into a better place in his brain.
Yeah, that's interesting that you talk about the chair, because there's an article from parents.com that's sort of saying this type of discipline technique is really misused. And one of the things they said is sitting on the chair. And I have to say, I did one of the no-nos when my kids were young and did them in the corner. I have to confess, it didn't feel very good at the time. But
Sometimes you need, not only does the child need a break, but the parent needs a break, because I'm a bit of a screamer. Shock horror. Can't guess that one. And to give the pair of us, because Joshua and I are so much alike, to give us that break was actually very good. And the pair of us could come back together after the, however long, and just talk about it a bit more calmly.
I second the time out. The parent needs time out.
That's what I was thinking as well. It's like, I think the timeout's more for the parent than it is for the kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to not just react out of anger and just, whatever your first reaction is to the child, to give yourself a bit of space,
Have any of you, I'm very curious, have any of you ever found that your child will act out more once they're in timeout? Because I know the article was saying that often it's misused in the sense that they're supposed to be it's more effective if they're ignored for the time that they're in timeout, but they'll sort of run around and then you're forced to give them attention again and make, rouse on them again. And so they sort of get into this cycle.
Because any attention is better than no attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
My main experience with timeout is watching Super Nanny. I'm going to be honest.
Yes,
What
I
does
love
she
that
do?
show.
Yeah, she does the same. She puts them in timeout and then you ignore them. Even
For how long?
It's 1 minute
for every year.
which I think is one of the things
The
they're
no-nos.
saying is one of the no-nos.
Misused.
But
Well,
who gets to decide that anyway,
Well, I guess it's up to the parent, but their point was that the only discomfort the child should be feeling is just that short separation from the parent, not feeling sort of any shame or anything else that might come along with it. And that's how I felt when I put my eldest daughter in the corner, and I sort of stopped that technique because it didn't feel right. I still do time out, but I let them decide when they're ready to come back to have a chat.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a minute, sometimes it's longer.
But I think part of the timeout thing is also having the discussion with the child about what they did wrong.
Yeah, we have that after they come out and they're ready to discuss it. So I say, you decide when you're ready to come out and talk to mummy, because I want them to self-regulate.
So who's in control?
They have some say in it, and I'm really okay with that. And to me, it hasn't had any detriments yet, touch wood.
Well, I think it's really good for healthy confrontation, but also I remember when I used to be in timeout and my mum would say that exact thing to me, you come out when you're ready. And I used to find that it was this really big pride barrier. It's like, if I go out, then I have to admit that I was wrong, kind of thing. So I think it's actually really, I think it's really healthy though to make kids do that, because it does make them have to sort of swallow,
well, ready actually means apologize. It means face up to your behavior.
Face up to your behavior. That's what I'm trying to say.
Accountability.
I don't feel like we mentioned shame, and I'll say this briefly. We mentioned shame, and I don't know that shame is necessarily the most negative emotion that a child can feel.
Why is that?
There are times in life you should be shameful of your behavior, and I don't think we should keep kids from feeling shame.
Because otherwise, how do we know to apologise?
I think some behaviours deserve shame,
Okay, well, I don't know. What do you think? Let us know on Facebook. I'd be interested to hear how you've used timeout, or if you think it's a no-no. Well, we're taking you into our next topic, and it is said that teaching kids about money is never just about money. So when it comes to children and pocket money, how do you approach it? Money editor Caitlin Fitzsimmons wrote for the Sydney Morning Herald and challenges parents to think about what pocket money is for. Is it for learning a skill or is it just to buy something? And how young do you give it? You're like the money guru here.
I knew I was going to get that one to me.
What did you do with your kids?
My kids didn't get pocket money until they were quite a lot older.
So how old?
Probably about 7 or 8.
Okay.
They guilted me into pocket money
Because all the other
everybody else was getting it. Because I liked the kids learning that they needed to work around the house for the family. Yeah.
For free.
And, for free.
Yeah.
And, well, I do, so why shouldn't they?
I'm on board with that.
But also, once they got money, I needed to teach them how to use money. And so we banked some money. We gave money to a charity or church or whatever, and they had some money to spend. On one child, it's worked really, really well. He saves, and he's a good little saver and saved a lot of money. The other one...
They're so different, aren't they?
They are. Yeah.
What did you have growing up, Mary Ellen? Did you have pocket money like weekly or not at all?
Well, interesting. I was going to ask, how do you define pocket money? Because some kids, I think, define it as just, you just get given a weekly amount of money, like $20 a week or something for doing nothing. And others actually have to work for it and do chores and they get money per chore. And growing up, my dad would just sort of give us pocket money. We couldn't actually use it. He just put like $20 into our account every week. And so we'd have money there if we needed it. But we would just do work for money. So depending on how much work we did around the house, we get paid for that. So I think there's merits to both systems. I'm not really sure which one actually teaches kids better. I don't know.
I think some sort of system that associates work with money and then teaches them what to do with the money would be great. I didn't get pocket money, so I think what I learned was there was no money.
I had the same lesson.
I learned there was no
That lesson
extra.
sucks. I had that one too.
Well, I mean, I would get money if there was like an activity at school they needed to pay for. They were paying for plenty of things like private school, so there was plenty of things that my parents were paying for.
Well, I guess kids don't need money, but it's nice for them to sort of have that journey of learning how to use it and working for it.
Sometimes my dad would say, if you iron a shirt for me, I'll give you $1 per shirt that you ironed.
Now the roles have reversed because the other day Joshua came to me and said, do you want to earn $20, Mum? And I went, what? How am I going to earn $20? Oh, I need my car seat sewn up. If you show me how to do it, I'll pay you $20.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, there you go.
Did you charge him?
Yeah, of course.
Was it your,
Teaching him lessons.
was it your $20 coming back into your
Probably it was, yeah.
My question is though, right, because we're becoming a cashless society. In 5, 10, 15 years' time, will we even have this concept?
Valid
Well,
point.
I did read an article the other day about how parents are now teaching their children how to use debit cards and credit cards and cashless
I was gonna say,
society.
please don't say tap and go.
Well, tap and go and all those things. So I think as parents, we do need to be educating our children about the cashless society.
And that's even more important because you're dealing with debt as opposed to dealing with money.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember when Mum first gave me the credit card to pay with something, I felt so responsible. What do you do? Let us know what you do with your kids and pocket money. It's an interesting topic. Do they work for their money or do you have to work around the house for free? I'd love to know. Hit us up on Facebook and have your say there. Well, we're taking you into the studio with Alicia, who's doing some exercise, some isometric holds.
Hi, it's Alicia, the Table's resident personal trainer, back with a little fitness tip for you all. So today, ladies, we're going to be talking about isometric holds. Does anyone have any idea what that means?
The whole part, yes.
The hold, yeah.
Isometric sounds like a triangle.
Sounds like a triangle, that's true. That's true. What it basically is basically any kind of exercise that we can hold in that position for an extended period of time. So, for example, you've probably seen a squat hold before, or a wall sit is another one they call where you put your back up against a wall, you shimmy down into that squat position and you try and hold it there for as long as possible. You time it, and then you do that every so often, whether it's once a week or once a month, as sort of a fitness test to push yourself forward. And what isometric holds do is build muscular strength and endurance, because obviously the longer you hold it, the more endurance you're building, right? So I just want to show you 4 different exercises that you can do that with. And these are like a great way to sort of give yourself a little challenge, like to have an indicator of your progress with your fitness, and that you can do it at home and almost do them as your own little mini workout, like once a week or something, and see how you're progressing each week. So I might get Rach up as our first volunteer. So basically with a squat hold, what you're aiming to do is you want to have a good wide stance with your squat, and then from there you sit it back, and you want to basically not move from coming up there. You would set your timer and you just sit here holding, making sure that that back is still nice and tall, nice and long, chest is high, and then she's still smiling. She's still smiling, that's a good sign. And what you want to do is you're going to feel the urge to want to start lifting your butt, but you want to try and stay down there as long as possible. It helps having someone else keeping an eye on you to be like, no, back down.
Yeah, down, right.
But can you feel it already just holding it?
It's burning here.
It's burning. There you go. Good. Okay. Well done. Awesome. Now, another one that you can do, now that, by the way, can be an exercise you can take to a wall and sit on that wall and do it as well. It gives you, it keeps you upright, which is good.
Is it easier if you do it against a wall?
I think so, yes.
Push against it almost.
Yeah, you can kind of hold yourself there a little bit, like grip your skin onto it. Yeah.
Just check it.
That's right. So another one that we can do, Melody, I might get you up for this one, is literally just an arm hold. Now you might think, holding your arms out like this, it doesn't feel like much, but it probably after maybe 30 seconds to a minute, you're going to start feeling that burn in those shoulders. So that's another really good one. It's so simple, but you could just hold there, time yourself and see how long you can keep them from dropping, okay? So not timing. 30 seconds, no, you're right. Okay, two more that we can do on the floor is our plank hold and our reverse plank. So, Mary Ellen, I might get you down.
You're up.
You want to lie this way?
Down.
Your plank hold, that is the typical plank, would be on your elbows, on your forearms, and then you want to try and, even if you struggle to do a plank from your knees, from your toes, do it from your toes, and even if you literally can only hold it for like 5 seconds, that is a way that you can challenge yourself. Okay, I'm going to hold it for 7 seconds next time or whatever. What's important here is shoulders, hips, knees and ankles are all nicely aligned in a nice straight line. You don't want your butt up in the air or down, okay? So there's another one that you can do, and then you can do it reverse as well. So there's just a little challenge for you at home and for us ladies. If you want to push yourself, do some isometric holds and maybe write in and tell us how you went with it. All right, see ya.
Well, in this month's At the Table magazine, Suvi Mahoney writes about her challenges with her young daughter and screen time. Don't we all have that? She looks into the research that's out there and the physiological effects, with experts suggesting it's not necessarily the screen time exposure that's the issue, but the content and how it's being used. Rach, what did you make of this article? And I'd really like to ask what Jax does with screen time. Like, what do you allow him to do?
I think in the very, very early days there was none, but it would be very hard because as parents we'd be, you might be bored. Sometimes you turn something on and his head just totally shifted. I think as he's gotten a bit older and I have a pretty huge work project on at the moment, the Wiggles are completely babysitting my child.
Oh, like another family member.
What'd you say?
They're like another family member.
Yeah, because in the absence of having family to watch him, all the Wiggles have become his best friend, and he's learning all of the songs, and he's actually, I'm finding that he's developing more language through it. Yeah. As far as you asked me about the phone, like what age he might have a phone.
Yeah.
I'm very much for kids having phones that they can use in case of like an emergency situation. So I think I would probably give him a dumb phone.
Yeah, because smartphone or a dumb phone?
No, definitely a dumb phone.
Yeah.
But I'd be as happy as Larry to give it to him as soon as he's out of my sight. And he knew how to use it so that he would be able to protect himself. So I think that's the useful.
It's really interesting. I teach at a school on a Friday morning, and the amount of children who have to line up at school and hand the phones in, and they just live locally, and I'm like, really? My kids didn't have a phone that early, so it sort of shocks me.
This is the primary school.
This is primary, so the oldest is year 6.
Okay.
So right from little tots
Are
all
these
the way up.
smartphones?
Some of them are smartphones, some of them are just analogues.
Because I know the government, or was it the government? Someone is trying to introduce a system anyway in the high school. Victorian government is trying to introduce a system in high schools where they're just banning phones completely, which is pretty drastic. I think that probably that'll be a lot of backlash.
I'm with you. I like the safety aspect. Like, my kids don't have a phone. My eldest is 9, and I haven't introduced it yet at all. But it's sort of in the back of my head for safety purposes. When they're on their own, I'd like them to be able to call me if they need to. But a dumb phone would be the way to go.
I think if you're thinking about, self-defense classes, or you're thinking about whistles or any of those things, I think a phone is just another tool that I give my kid to be able to protect himself, But
Sorry, go
ahead.
I was just going to say, we're talking about screen time and phones, and like when I was at high school, we'd have have to hand your phone in at the beginning of the day as well. The times are kind of changing, I think. It's only 4 years ago. But I often wonder if we're sometimes making it out to be this huge problem, well, particularly screen time, like for toddlers, that is actually not. Because I remember when I was a toddler and I would watch hours and hours of Play School. Like the Wiggles were also my babysitter, but I don't think it really negatively affected me that much. But I'm not sure. Do we?
I've
actually
seen
know?
the Twitch every so often.
If you've got access to the internet on that phone, you've got access to a whole heap of things that are beyond what you're sort of talking about there. And when we had, I can't remember who it was in here saying that, pornography is seen from such a young age. If kids have that phone and you're not with them and you're not watching what they're doing, you don't know what they're accessing.
That's what you said, content versus the actual time spent.
But isn't that then when we start having a conversation with our children? And I think this is something as parents that we don't do enough of, is sit down and have these conversations with kids.
Did you have the chat with your kids?
I'm still having chats with my kids on
so it's
stuff.
Ongoing.
It's always ongoing. Yeah. It's a different type of chat, but it's still a chat.
And that's one of the challenges with toddlers is because when they're watching all of this stuff, it's harder to have those conversations and explain the effects and being mindful and moderate with stuff.
But
what are
you
they
have
saying?
to.
Yeah, but it's much harder to have a
Yes,
cognitive
young kids.
discussion with them. Where
And they're
really
saying now that
understanding.
kids under 2 should have no screen time because it's starting to affect and delay their language.
Oh, good luck with that. Go through the local Coles and see how many kids are on the phone watching something.
Wow. Yeah, okay. Well, I know Melinda and Bill Gates sort of banned their kids until what, they were 14, was it?
14.
Yeah, there you go. There's the challenge. If they're doing it, maybe it's cool. Let us know on Facebook. What have you done with your kids and phones? Give us some ideas on our Village on Facebook. We're taking you into the kitchen now with Gia and Olive. They're going to be making some sweet chilli sauce.
We are going to show you a way to make some really healthy wholemeal chips, or crisps we like to call them. They're so easy, they only take like 3 minutes in the oven, and they're made with wholemeal flat Lebanese bread. So every supermarket has them. Wholemeal Lebanese bread, these are oil-free, I think too, which is great. And if my kids come home and they're hungry, I just throw these in the oven. It's so quick. Or if you've made soup and instead of garlic bread, because it's full of so much stuff, the ones that you get from the shops that aren't really that healthy, I'll make these instead. And so I just use a knife from the from Pizza Knife. So you just cut them in like tortillas type of shapes. Here, you can have this bit, this end bit. And I just, because if you can open them from the middle, and you can make them smaller than that or larger than that. I've just made them bigger because that's the size they are. And you can make different sizes and shapes. It doesn't have to be like triangles, but we just like them because we can dip them into things. Whoa, we lost you again. Up you get. Now we are going to use the chicken salt seasoning that we made in one of our episodes, and you can find that on thetabletv.com, or you can follow us on the Facebook page, The Table TV Show. But you will find we've got some really good seasonings that you can use on like whole food seasonings. Here we go. So we're just going to put some of this on there. I don't even use oil for it to stick on there. It actually just, when you bake it, it sticks. And it's just going to bring such a nice little flavour to it. You can use anything you want on it. You might even have all-purpose seasoning. You put these in the oven for 3 minutes in my oven at 180, but you might need to cook them a bit more in yours, depending on what type of oven you have. And I'm just going to put them in there, and in 3 minutes we're going to have a try. I got chips. I got the chips. So yeah, they were just in the oven for 2.5, 3 minutes. Look at them.
And look at my
Crispy wholemeal chips
crisp.
with like not chicken flavouring. They are delicious. You can eat them like with soup and everything. Put them in your kids' lunch boxes. Make them smaller and put them in a little Ziploc bag, and then they've got healthy chips, and they will love them. They're so much better and healthier than the ones that you get from the shops anyway. Do you want to try the chip that I made? Have a crack at it.
Later.
No, have a bite. Pretty good, eh? This is a winner in our family.
Well, if you enjoyed that recipe and you want to learn more about healthy cooking, you'll want this cookbook that we're giving away free today. It's called Health and Happiness. All you need to do is just email us your name, your address, and the name of this book, Health and Happiness, to hello@thetabletv.com, or if you'd prefer, you can call us in Australia and New Zealand. The numbers are right there on your screen. Well, we're privileged today to have with us award-winning Australian singer, songwriter, speaker, worship leader and mum, Belle Thompson. She's experienced postnatal depression and come through the other side. Belle, thanks so much for joining us today. We'd really love to sort of hear so much more about your journey, but before we do, you've been a songwriter for how long now?
I started writing songs when I was just a teenager, so
Right.
that's a long time now.
It is a long time. So you've been doing it for a while. What actually sort of got you into the whole music industry and the love of music?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've been playing instruments since I was young. My family's not musical at all, but
Okay.
my parents noticed when I would sit down and watch Play School that it was like serious business. I'd get out all my instruments and I'd be like, hold it, people. Love
it.
And yeah, so Mum's like, maybe we should get her some piano lessons, and it kind of went from there.
Well, there's the benefit of TV.
I know. Makes it sound good. I'd love to hear a little bit about your story because I know when you were just a brand new baby, you had some sort of trouble with your hands. Can you tell us about that?
So, well, and I didn't know this story till I was like 16 myself, but when I was born, I had something wrong with my hands, and every night they would swell up and turn blue. And so I was scheduled to have this operation, and so I'm a little newborn. I'm my parents' first baby. They were pretty anxious about it, and they had actually just become Christians, and they'd started going to a local church. And the night before the operation, they took me just to the church service and mentioned afterwards, "Oh, hey, Belle's got this operation happening tomorrow. We're a bit anxious about it." And one of the guys said, "Oh, so have you prayed about it?" And they were like, would God even care? Like, this is our little baby. And they were like, he would totally care. So they prayed for me. And the next morning, when normally every morning my hands are swollen, I couldn't move them as a baby. And Mum went in and was like, that's so weird. Her hands haven't swollen up. She's like, well, that'd be right. The day we're going to the hospital, the doctors won't believe me. So she bundles me up and having no clue that, God had actually answered their prayer. So they got there. The doctors were like, she's totally healed. And so I never needed the operation.
Wow.
I know.
And goosebumps.
Yeah, and you've used your hands like
Totally.
for so much music, which is
That's what my dad said. Yeah, he said he knew from that moment that God was going to use my hands for something.
Wow.
Yeah.
He has. Now that you're a first-time mum yourself, how was that journey?
Yeah, well, look, I was so excited to become a mum, and my husband and I, in the years before that, we'd been touring around Australia. We'd had so many adventures. We were doing music full time, traveling all over the place, and so we had delayed becoming parents while that was all happening because we were like, it's probably a bit hard to have a baby in the boot of the car next to the guitar and stuff.
I think it's been done before, I'm sure.
Well, it kind of happens now. Our 2-year-old's in there, but so we had delayed it, and so by the time I was finally pregnant, I was so excited, and then I suppose I had such a great pregnancy. So when we actually had our baby, it came as a complete shock to me that I would get postnatal depression because I so wanted to be a mum.
Yeah. It's interesting that sort of you touched on postnatal depression because you've had that. I guess I wanted to ask some questions about sort of some of the symptoms. Did you recognise them? How have you gotten through it?
Yeah. Again, I thought postnatal depression was something that really strange or people that had emotional problems kind of got. And for me, I guess it started at birth, really. So I went from I was fit, I was healthy, I was the poster child for I was going to have a natural birth, and I had this birth plan which I found the other day and was like,
Fell through real right?
right? You could not have got a more opposite experience. So we had a pretty rough birth, and I think really for me that was very traumatic and a rough start to motherhood. So our baby wasn't breathing when he was born, and so he needed to be rushed straight off for medical care. And as a result, I didn't get to hold him or nurse him or even see him when he was born. It's very traumatic for all of us involved, including my husband. And when I finally met him, and I was put under a general anaesthetic because it was life or death situation. Wow. So when I finally met our son, I was wheeled up. I was still in the bed after the emergency C-section, and they wheeled me up and said, "This is your baby." And I looked. I still wasn't allowed to hold him because he was hooked up to all these different monitors, and I just thought, what has happened to my healthy, beautiful baby? I felt like I was looking at someone else's baby. And for me, it was like from that moment, just this blackness set in. I felt incredibly just ill from all of the drugs and stuff that had needed to be a part of saving his life. And while I was thankful for that, I just really grieved that, particularly in those first moments, I felt like I'd let him down, that I wasn't able to be there to hold him and tell him that I loved him.
And from that experience, what happened when you got home?
From that point, that was really the start. That blackness just didn't lift for me. And it was every day accompanied by just this overwhelming anxiety of everything. And, I think exhaustion and feeling overwhelmed is, now I realise, I think that's a part of when you have your first baby. You have no idea. I had no idea what I was doing, and certainly I didn't think it was going to be nearly as hard as it was. Like, why didn't somebody tell me? Or I just didn't have ears to hear. So, the blackness, the tears, it was beyond the baby blues. I was in tears every day, every time I'd think about that birth experience, and just feeling like I was in completely over my head.
And you've sort of had the opportunity to write a song which has reflected on that, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it's because I'm a musician, this has all come out in the music.
Yeah.
So I used to strap my baby into the baby carrier every day and just sit down at the piano, and I would cry and just pour it into songs. And so this album that I've just released, this was my journey through postnatal depression, and I had no idea I was going to be releasing an album about this.
We'd love to listen to just about 30 seconds of it. I think we've got just to place a patch of it. That sounds absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
What inspired you to write that song?
I wrote that 7 weeks after having my son, and I had just been to see my obstetrician for our final post-birth checkup, and I had told him that I was still in tears every day when I thought about the birth and that I wasn't able to be there to hold my son. And he said to me, "Belle, you may not have been able to hold your son, but the whole time God was holding him."
Oh, wow. Amen.
And for me, I went home, and as I started to process that, it was exactly what I needed to hear to start to reframe the experience and just recognize that actually God cared deeply about what I was going through, that he was there holding not only my son but me through the whole experience. And really that was a big part of me processing and being able to work it through as I started to re-engage with the fact that he really did care about what was going on in my world.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
Bill, I was just going to ask, what advice might you give to women who are going through postnatal depression right now?
Please, quickly,
Yeah, quickly.
I think motherhood is difficult, and that's normal. Motherhood is hard, and it gets so much better. It's like
We have to learn to forgive ourselves, don't we? It's such a big journey. Look, thank you so much for joining us today. We have loved having you here. Ladies, a pleasure, and as always, thank you for joining us. If you've got anything you want to jump onto Facebook and have your say, and don't forget, the website for Belle's Music is on the screen. We will see you next time. Bye for now.